Here's a story at Ranker.com written by Lyra Radford called 11 Harrowing Stories of People Who Escaped Scientology. Leah Remini says she became an enemy of the church for speaking out. In 2013, actress Leah Remini announced her departure from the Church of Scientology after more than 30 years as a member. She was not afraid of the retaliation she believed would come her way when she alleged the cult had a controlling nature. She claims that when she asked why Shelley Miscavige, the wife of Scientology leader David Miscavige, was not in attendance at the wedding of Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes, she received a harsh response. She said on her series Leah Remini, Scientology and the Aftermath, "In my mind, I'm a parishioner, but I'm also just a human being, asking where another human being was." The response that I don't have a rank to be asking about a human being, it spoke to the person in me that doesn't like to be bullied. Not only did this make Remini more curious about Shelley's whereabouts, it also made her start to question many things about the organization. She added, "And that's what started me questioning the church more and more." She has since been labeled by the church a suppressive person. In other words, an enemy of the church. In November of 2022, she posted a Twitter thread accusing the LAPD of corruption in relation to Shelley Miscavige's purported disappearance. In it, she claims that though she was the one to file Shelley's missing persons report, she had to learn through the media that the LAPD had allegedly found Shelley and closed the case only hours later. The LAPD also allegedly denied Remini's public records request for information regarding Shelley's case. In particular, Remini named LAPD veteran Corey Palka and Lieutenant Andre Dawson as pivotal figures in the story. The former accepted a large donation from the Church of Scientology. The latter, who was the lead detective in the investigation into Shelley's whereabouts, appeared as a guest speaker at a Scientology event. Katie Holmes reportedly feared her daughter would be kidnapped. After Katie Holmes filed for divorce from Tom Cruise, she feared that actor or someone from the church would kidnap their daughter Siri, law enforcement officials told the New York Post. Katie saw all the pressure. Scientologists are professionals at pressuring people to be quiet, Holmes' friend told the paper. That's why she did this. That's why she filed for divorce in secret. Suri is at the age when they're going to start educating her in Scientology centers and indoctrinating her into their religion. The source added, Katie does not want them making all the decisions for her child. Cruise later admitted Holmes left their 5-year marriage and took their daughter to protect her from Scientology. Mike Rinder says the church spied on him and launched a smear campaign. Mike Rinder, a former high-ranking executive of Scientology, was raised in the religion from childhood. The religion. He left the church in 2007 after more than 45 years. Despite his devotion to the church and its leader, David Miscavige, he says he was imprisoned by the church for roughly 2 years, spending much of that time in a facility known as The Hole. He says he managed to slip away from the church on a London tube. Americans read subway, though he was disconnected from his family in the process. According to his wife, Christy Colbran, a Scientology spy worked to become part of their lives in 2012. Another woman claimed to have been tasked with searching through Rinder's trash for information and keeping track of those who visited his home, according to writer Tony Ortega. Reinder's daughter, Taryn Teutsch, has accused him of assaulting her mother, Reinder's ex-wife, Kathy Bernardini. Reinder told Ortega that accusation was part of a smear campaign orchestrated by the church. Reinder said Taryn is just a puppet. She doesn't even see her Facebook page or the tweets on it. It is all completely orchestrated. Amy Scobie says she was sexually assaulted, and the church told her not to report it. Amy Scobie, a 27-year member, was for a time responsible for recruiting others to a branch of the church's Sea Org. She says that the church recruited her when she was 14, and that while she was 16, she was assaulted by an executive of the organization. According to Scobie, a Scientology ethics officer convinced her not to report the attack to the police. She says that on 4 occasions, she was sent to the church's Rehabilitation Project Force, which she describes as nothing short of a slave labor camp. She left the church in March 2005. Got a super chat from Two Feathers. Thank you, dear. Much appreciated. Let me just move this a little bit. Oh, yeah. And a picture of a hippo in an office chair. Thank you, Two Feathers, dear. Ron Miscavige says he sped away after tricking security guards. Ron Miscavige, David Miscavige's father, says he and his wife lived at a high-security Scientology base that offered almost no internet access. According to Ron, David gifted his father a Kindle, not realizing the popular e-reader offered unfiltered internet access. And one Google search was all it took to reveal that much of the outside world. And one Google search was all it took to reveal that much of the outside world considered Scientology to be a cult, rife with allegations of physical abuse, sexual assault, and the continued harassment of former members. He showed his wife Becky, and they spent 6 months planning their escape. Ron and Becky established a routine, conditioning the guards to let them out to visit a music studio across the street every Sunday. Ron told 2020, "I drove out so slowly it would not arouse suspicion. When I turned left, I put my foot right to the floorboard. I knew we were free. I knew they couldn't catch us." He added, "It was an escape. You can't leave. You think you can just walk out? No, you'll be stopped. I escaped." Jenna Miscavige Hill says she discovered the truth about Scientology and bailed. Her as a child. Jenna Miscavige Hill, author of Beyond Belief, My Secret Life, Inside Scientology, and My Harrowing Escape, is the niece of Scientology leader David Miscavige. Hill was raised in the church's most devout religious order, the Sea Org, which according to Hill is a child labor camp. She claims children were sent to the ranch, where they were forced to do physical labor 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. During a 2004 church mission to Australia, she says he and her husband Dallas learned the extent of the Church of Scientology's deceit, as the trip exposed them to unfiltered internet access. They decided to leave, but the organization threatened Dallas with disconnection from his family, according to Hill. She claims the church pressured them to sign contracts entitling the church to $10,000 for every public criticism they might make about the church. She refused. None of this stopped Jenna from leaving in 2005, or from speaking out against the church thereafter. Mark Headley says Scientologists pursued him as he fled on a motorcycle. Mark Headley says he coordinated Scientology events that embellished the positive aspects of the church with slanted statistics. Mike Reinders said he was intimately involved and oversaw all aspects of Scientology's propaganda machine. Headley says that a discussion about Scientology on the radio show, The John and Ken Show, contributed to his doubts about the church. He wrote in his book, Blown for Good, Behind the Iron Curtain of Scientology, that in January of 2005, he left the church's gold base in Riverside, California, on a motorbike. But security guards pursued him, and he crashed. Riverside County Police then arrived and helped him get farther from the church, according to Headley, as he was carted away in an ambulance. Claire Headley says she snuck away during a trip to Walmart. Claire Headley says she was born into Scientology. Maybe his daughter? Maybe his daughter. He wouldn't leave his daughter, would he? Ouch. Were they both in from childhood? Doesn't say. Maybe we'll find out. Claire Headley says she was born into Scientology, and then at the age of 7, she signed a contract to be with the church for 1 billion years. Headley says she was faced with the threat of a freeloader's debt, a retroactive billing for all Scientology auditing and training while received in the Sea Org. The debt can run into tens or thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. She claims to have been coerced into terminating 2 pregnancies during her time with Sea Org. After Claire's husband, so she was of age, God willing. Thank God. But leaving his wife behind, that's just really weird. After Claire's husband, Mark, successfully left the church, he managed to get a cell phone to her to help coordinate her own departure. According to Claire, during a trip to Walmart, she had to get approval to purchase contact lenses. She slipped away from Scientologists and boarded a bus. When she arrived in L.A., she was met by more Scientologists, but she threatened to make a scene if they tried to take her back to California physically. The Headleys then reunited. Well, thank God she was in public. So he probably got out with the intention of getting her out. And they probably were obviously talking about this beforehand as well, one would think. They should have put that in the article, though. Really. They have 3 children and continue to be outspoken critics of the church. It's art time. Well, let's continue. Tom DeVote says he's being followed. Former high-ranking Sea Org executive, Tom DeVote, says he worked very closely with David Miscavige. When he was unable to secure a permit to block Scientology protesters, Miscavige attacked him, called him an enemy, physically choked him, according to DeVote in an appearance on Leah Remini, Scientology and the Aftermath. DeVote told the St. Petersburg Times if it wasn't the answer he wanted to hear, he would lose it. If it was contrary to how he thought, he would lose it. If he found it to be smart aleck, or it was a better answer than he had, he would lose it. After 28 years and multiple alleged attacks, DeVoe left the Church of Scientology in 2005. He has since been declared by the church a suppressive person, enemy of the church. According to DeVoe, he has remained under surveillance by the church. His sister Nancy, he says, was sent to the Rehabilitation Project Force as punishment for visiting him after he left. Jeff Hawkins says the church tried to find blackmail material on him. Quote, I went through their procedure for routing out, which included 3 months of security checks, where they try to uncover all of your crimes, quote unquote. They are basically trying to find blackmail material they can use against you if you speak out about what you witnessed. You are also required to sign legal gag orders that forbid you from speaking about your experiences. Legally, they are unenforceable. After I went through this procedure, I was allowed to leave. One of the few that were allowed. I guess not so big a fish, eh? My apologies to Jeff.